Hey, thanks for listening to Everyday Greatness. It's a nice little show brought to you by our major sponsor, ARA Group, an employee-owned company that provides essential services for your facility and infrastructure and is one of Australia's biggest supporters of community projects. Everyday greatness isn't rocket science. We're just trying to make you feel proud again of simply being a good, solid human being by speaking to some real people who found that the strength they needed to deal with any challenge in their life had been inside them the whole time. The ARA Group is proud to stand alongside Everyday Greatness, and we all hope that you enjoy the show.
Just calling yourself a good man, living a solid life, wouldn't be that big a deal for most people today. But my guest on Everyday Greatness today, Daniel KOLARIK, for him it's one of the biggest things, one of the greatest things you could say about him. Daniel was on a downward spiral with an addiction to drugs and alcohol. He spent a week without sleeping, jumping from drug den to get his next score. And at the end of that week, Daniel rang his mum and told her he couldn't do it anymore. In the most vulnerable position in his life, Daniel's mum gave him exactly what he needed. She told him she was there for him, but told him that he had to take it seriously. Like all good little boys should, Daniel listened to his mother. He went to rehab, where he was broken down and rebuilt. He kicked his habit, and he's now living an everyday life. Daniel is now proud to tell his story of overcoming addiction in the hopes that he can help other people in the same boat as he was. And I'm proud to say that Daniel KOLARIK has agreed to join us on Everyday Greatness. Daniel, welcome and thank you.
Barnaby, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem at all. Now, I need to start off, in the interest of journalistic transparency, you and I do know each other from a previous life. Tell us about our relationship and how we know each other.
Yes, we do, mate. I think we first came across each other back in, I believe it was the year 2006. I think I was still at high school, my last year of high school, and signed up to the mighty Pennant Hills Demons and to give them a go. And, mate, you were, and still are, somewhat of a cult hero around there. And I must admit that you were one of the, even though you were club captain at the time, you actually made me feel very welcome. So that's where we first came across each other. And a couple of great left footers out on the footy field, I might add.
Very true. Thank you for those words. Now, tell us your story of your drug addiction in your own words. How did it start? What were you addicted to? And when did the wheels completely fall off?
Mate, it is a long story, but in essence, it's sort of, I mean, a lot of what I know now is a lot of stuff I didn't know when I was in active using.
Yep.
But looking back at things, I mean, I sort of learnt when I went to rehab that my addiction started. They say there's a saying that every addict has trauma, but not everyone who has trauma will be an addict. So I sort of was put on medication at a young age, which I learnt was a big catalyst for the addiction in my adult years.
Yeah.
But the sort of, I mean, I started taking party drugs at about the age of 19. And I found back then that, I mean, I pretty much just fell in love with them because a lot of the drugs I was taking when I was partying had a very similar makeup to the medication I was taking as a child. So there was only sort of specific drugs that I was really attracted to, sort of, you can put it. But so the addiction sort of started, I mean, I look back and probably at the age of, you say the wheels started to fall off. I think they sort of really, the drugs really took a hold of me, if I'm being real, probably in my mid-20s. That's when I sort of really started taking a lot, most weekends. But again, the wheels hadn't started to fall off yet. That's just when I started to, the amounts I was taking became quite high.
Yeah.
But, with addiction, I know I didn't put my hand up until the first step of the the 12-step recovery that I'm in now is admitting that you're powerless over your addiction and that your life has become unmanageable.
Yep.
My life hadn't become unmanageable until probably the last few years. And by that, I mean, I still, although I was sort of out of control, I wasn't. Like, I still had a job. I still had friends. I was a very bad liar and quite manipulative as well to get what I wanted. I will say that now when it came to drugs, because that was the power of the addiction. But once I started to, I lost a job, relationships started to fall apart, family started to fall off. That's when sort of life became unmanageable.
Yeah.
So I would probably, I'm 33, nearly 34. And I'll probably say it wasn't until I was about 30, 31 that the wheels really started to fall off and my life started to spiral pretty bad. So, yeah.
That's a long build up to wheels falling off. So you said you were about 19 when you started party drugs. Who were you before your addiction journey started?
Oh, mate, that's a good question. I talked to my mum about this. We've spoken a lot about because big part of the journey in the rehab was to trying to find the inner child and to find who I was as a child and things like that. And I as a baby, I've been told, and I do have flashbacks of this when I was a toddler, that I was quite I was very much in my own head. I was quite outlandish. I used to chuck terrible tantrums as a child. Almost to the point where, again, my beautiful mother tells me that it was very hard to take me even to the shopping centre because I would create quite a racket and So and I suppose that's those things compounded into why I was diagnosed with ADHD and then put on medication. And then the medication definitely cancelled all that out, but they probably took it to the extreme where I was, probably a confused child. I'll quite say, looking back on it now, a lot of things going in my head, and I found it very hard to put those into words. But I mean, I mean, still to this day, I think, and even as a child, I have a big heart and had a big heart back then. And I was a loving person, but I had a lot of problems. I did have a lot of problems, and eventually they all came out. But again, at the time, I didn't know what I know now.
Yeah. Hindsight's always 20/20.
That's exactly it, mate. Yeah, well said.
So tell me, how would you sum up the man you are today?
Oh, mate, that's interesting. It's always hard I find it hard to talk about myself, but mate, again, still what I said before, I'm a very caring person, a very understanding, particularly what I've been through. I'm very open-minded. There's obviously still a lot of things to work on. It's a lifelong journey, this whole life thing, but mate, I'm a man of the simple things as well. We did it very tough when we were young as well. So I've got a lot of appreciation for the beautiful things I have in my life now, particularly because they were nearly taken away from me completely, last year.
Yep.
And, mate, yeah, just a happy, outgoing person. I don't get angry a lot. Well, people at work might say differently. You can ask them. But yeah, mate, yeah, it's I'm a happy, outgoing, loving person. But I do keep a quiet life these days. I like to stay in my own lane and just work and train and see the people that matter to me in my life. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it sort of does to me a bit.
Makes perfect sense, and I'm sure a lot of people are jealous.
Yeah,
so how bad did things get for you when you were using and the wheels were falling off with your drug addictions?
Well, mate, look, towards the end, they got really, really bad. Probably the last, I lost my job in 2019, 2020, and I'd had that for 8 years.
Right.
And I thought I was going to be at that job forever. And coincidentally enough, I lost it as a result of a positive drug test at work. So that's when, and that sort of crushed me. I ended up in a psych ward after that because, and also I was using quite heavily. So losing a job of 8 years, using heavily, let's just say there's not a lot of happy thoughts that go through your mind when you mix those two things up. So that's when the wheels started to fall off. But then life bounced back pretty quickly. And again, the drugs I was using at the time, they were all sort of the amphetamine based as well. And I know at the start of 2021, I was I'd had another job that I'd picked up after I'd left my previous company, which was a great job. But lo and behold, I blew that as well as a result of using. You know, I went to work on a Monday after a big weekend, and you know, they'd it's almost looking back at it now, I think they could tell when I walked in that I had a big weekend, and then an hour later the drug tests were put in front of us, and mate, I just got in the car and bolted. I didn't need to put that swab in my mouth. I knew it was going to come back. I got a phone call later that week saying you're fired, pretty much. And then at the sort of stars aligned in a weird way, I was introduced to ice.
Right.
And which I never ever thought, it always scared me. Never thought I'd put it in me, but I was so happy to put it in my body, because at that point in time I was in so much pain. I just wanted something to. So my using probably before that had been, you know, partying and, you know, just to, you know, I was in a good mood, so I wanted to celebrate. But then it became about numbing the pain and getting out of my own head. So it went from one thing to another. I was using only to escape the reality of my life, which was pretty bad at that stage. So I was introduced to ice, and then, as you can imagine, things start to go down quite badly at that stage. And then, and I took it even further. Then I was using, and the people around me at that time, a lot of people left around me from the previous years, and the people around me when I was using ice were just a whole different level. Not very nice people at all. Right. Scumbags for a better word. But I didn't really care, because they had the drugs and I just wanted to use them. And then they, not long after I started on the ice, I was watching people around me sort of injected in themselves, and needles were always something that I was, scared shitless of. I never wanted to. But again, I was in that much pain, I wanted to do anything to get out of my own head. So, someone gave me my first injection of crystal meth, and they call it the point of no return. And mate, that's pretty much what happened. My life just went on a straight descent. And over the next few months, it was I just self-imploded. So yeah.
So during those next few months where you were self-imploding and you could feel it, how did you think you were going to pull yourself out of this really dangerously bad situation?
Mate, honestly, and this might sound a bit confronting, the only thing that gave me peace was knowing that I was going to end my life soon.
Right.
The only thing, I used to put my head on the pillow after a big week, few days on it, and I used to tell myself it'll all be over soon. Right. You'll end it soon. I was trying to come up with there was a suicide attempt in there. Which thankfully I can say now didn't work. But at the time I was quite angry at myself because I didn't really, have the guts to go through it. And I know that's might sound weird, but thank God I didn't go through with it. But that's what gave me. I knew that my life was that bad, and I knew I didn't have the ability to get out of it. And I found peace knowing that I'll end it soon. I'll get out of this soon. So that's there was I knew deep down that I couldn't get out of it. I'd been doing this for too long. The drugs had a hold of me. There was no way out. The only way out was to take matters into my own hands.
Right. Before I go on, mate, I just want to say thank you for sharing everything so honestly, and it's probably fairly confronting for you, so thank you for sharing it with everybody.
It's a pleasure, mate.
So what prompted you, when you were in such a struggle city world, what prompted you to pick up the phone and ring your mum?
Mate, I talk about this moment quite a lot in the meetings that I go to. It was a spiritual moment because I had no desire to tell people how bad I was. A lot of people around me knew that I was bad and I'd taken quite a bad turn.
Yeah.
But I try to keep the cards close to my chest. just because I didn't want the confrontation. I didn't want the fuss. And to be honest, I didn't really care. I just wanted out. I didn't really want to live anymore.
Yeah.
So I had no desire to talk about what was happening. And then I think, yes, I'd been awake for nearly 8 days. I'd just been jumping from a drug den to another drug den, just injecting crystal meth. And when there was a moment when I knew, and when you're in the grips of that addiction, you'll do anything to get on and get that next hit. You know, I was in the mindset, my main only focus at the time was to keep on going, because I didn't want to come down. I didn't want the drugs to wear off, because my life sober was so painful, and my life using, it wasn't joyful, but at least it got me out of the pain, if that makes sense. So and when after the 8 days that I knew the drugs had run out, everything like that, I fell into I've never cried worse in my life. It all just hit me that I'm in a lot of trouble here. I'm in a real spot of bother. And again, I repeat this, I had no desire to tell mum, to tell my father, to tell anyone about what I was doing, but an energy, an energy just came over me. And my arm just pulled my phone out of my pocket. I called my mum, and I just said, "Mum, I need help." And that's why I'm quite spiritual today, because I truly believe that was a higher power, a moment, someone up above, put that energy in me to pull out my phone and call my mum. And that's what I did. And it's the call that, mate, it saved my life. If I hadn't have made that call, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
And what did your mum say?
She said it was the call she'd been waiting for years. And I suppose the hesitation also to call her was the judgment. There was no judgment from her. She had been waiting for this call, and she said one thing to me. She said, "If you want the help, if you really, really want to get the help, we will get you the help. Do you want the help?" And I said, "I can't do this anymore. What can we do?" And that's what kickstarted things.
What a woman. I've always had a high regard for mothers in general, but your mother in particular. That's an incredible story, mate. So,
she is, mate. Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to give you a rap. Go for it.
No, she is, mate. She, and we had a funny relationship growing up. She'll admit that as well. But I mean, I tell her this, often as well. But she's, along with the rest of my family. But if she wasn't the mother she is and the person she is, she saved my life, and I owe her my life. And the only thing I can do moving forward is just to be a good boy, essentially. So, which I try to do every day.
Well, you're a lucky man, and your mother's a lucky woman for having you, mate. So that phone call that started your rehab journey. How hard was that, and what did it look like, that rehab phase for you?
Mate, if I'm honest, it was excitement, because I was so desperate to live, to stop the life, to have a flicker of hope that there may be a chance that I could not use drugs again. That excited the hell out of me. So I was so desperate, because I looked around me and I had nothing left. I was pretty much nearly out on the streets. I had no job, had no money. Relationships had left me. There was not much left at all. And I was like, it was painful. It was painful life to live. The using was painful. So to be able to potentially go into a rehab where I'm essentially locked in a bubble for a period of time and can just focus on my addiction, mate, I was excited. I really, really wanted to. Yeah, I was pumped. Yeah. So, I mean, some people go in there against their own will. Some people go in there because their partners threatened to leave them. Mate, I put my hand up and I said, I want to do this. Yeah. I've been doing this for too long. And, if I'm not going to kill myself, I can't. If I'm going to stay on this earth, I need another way of living.
Yeah, sounds good. And it obviously worked, your rehab. So how long have you been clean for as of today?
Mate, I've been clean for 1 year, 1 month, and 3 weeks on the dot.
Is it like a movie? Do you chalk up the days as they go past, like people do in prisons in the movies?
We do. I'm in recovery, mate, and every day is a blessing, but we do celebrate milestones. 1 day at a time. The next milestone will be 18 months. But, mate, every day is a blessing, because from when I started taking party drugs to the time I had my last shot of crystal meth,
Yep.
I'd gone no longer than 3 weeks clean in a 13 year space.
Yep.
So to be clean this long in comparison to that is it's a miracle. It really, really is. So yeah.
Outstanding. Oh, mate, I'm getting goosebumps hearing this story. This is incredible. So you talked earlier about a lot of things you lost, relationships, family, jobs. What are you most grateful for today, now that you've been clean for over a year, that you thought you might never get back?
Mate, my family, top of the list. I have my older brother. I have 3 beautiful nephews, and even the eldest nephew who I held when he was a baby, he's, I'm picking him up tomorrow, and we're going. He's got his L's, so we're going to do get his hours up with his driving. But mate, to give you a rundown, like a couple of years ago, I left him stranded at the front of my brother's place because I'd agreed to take him to a football match, and I decided to try and have a couple the night before, and I ended up going on a 3-day bender because I couldn't stop, and he didn't make his footy match. He was stranded at the front. So to be given the trust and another opportunity to be able to, pick him up, sit in the car with him, drive up the coast, like when I was using, no one would have trusted me to do that. So for my family to, I'm not say welcome me back in, because they never kicked me out, but for them to be accepting and loving, it's special, mate. It really is. And to have the friends, obviously when I stopped using drugs, a lot of the people in my life went out, which are the people that I don't want around.
Yeah.
But the friends that I did wrong by and, I was untrustworthy towards, they're still around, mate. They've still got my back. And to be able to do the line of work that I'm still doing, because after that last incident with when I ran away from the drug test, I didn't think I'd be able to do my line of work again, and I'm still doing it to this day. So, and mate, and my health. I mean, I gave my body, mind, physically and mentally a battering during my using. It's amazing that my heart is in still good condition. I'll tell you that much right now. After a couple of benders that I went on, it was nearly popping out of my chest. It's amazing that I've still got a full grain of health. So, yeah, mate, they're the things. Anything else is a bonus, really. To have a roof over my head and food at the table and clothes on my back, that's what I'm grateful for every day.
That's a beautiful thing to say, mate. That's a really nice answer. So how was your first family dinner back when you got back from rehab?
Mate, the first, the dinner, I don't know if it was a dinner or it was a breakfast. It was something, but it was a special moment, mate. It really was, because to be able to sit at the table knowing that I'm doing the right thing and the people around me know that, hey, I'm doing the right thing. To have my older brother there, my younger brother, my brothers have had my back from day one when I entered recovery. They've always had my back, but, there was a lot of, missed opportunities over the years and things I didn't attend with them and or say I'd turn up and just never turn up because I was off doing, we all know what I was doing. But to be able to sit with them and it was quite special, the first family encounter. So, and we try and make them a frequent thing these days because they were few and far between for me when I was in active using. So it was quite special.
I'm sure they're bloody good family lunches and dinners these days. So how do you see your own story? Do you see this as a story of one young man who had the courage to pull himself up by the bootstraps after facing insurmountable challenges to live a life he was proud of? Or is this the story of the good people in your life helping you in your time of need?
Mate, it's a bit of both. And again, this is a conversation I had with both my parents that this isn't I can't do this by myself. I have a team around me. But they say to me that I had to put my hand up and get the courage and the strength to pick myself up and go, right, let's make a change. But to actually enforce those changes and make those changes, I needed a team around me. So I think it's a bit of both. I definitely give myself a pat on the back for turning things around and admitting that I needed help and sticking to the program. But mate, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't be in this position if I didn't have some beautiful people in my life to, only with rehab, mate. I wouldn't have got into that rehab if my grandparents paid for that rehab.
Yeah.
We didn't have, wasn't the cheapest thing in the world. I didn't have private health insurance, and if you were signed up to private health, there was a waiting period. Then you'd pay your excess, then get into rehab. But mate, I didn't have much time left. I was going to be dead in a matter of weeks. So the only other option was to pay the rehab up front, I should say. And that's what they did. So without that, I wouldn't have even gone to rehab. So I think it's a bit of both, to answer your question.
Yeah. Incredible. So you sound like, and I think you do have a fair bit of wisdom after all of this. Do you feel like you have wisdom you can pass on to other addicts looking for a way to get clean if they're at the bottom of their barrel like you were? What would you like to tell them?
Oh, look, it's find your purpose. It's got to come from I know the saying gets thrown around, but honestly, if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I was a hopeless addict and I was gutless and I had no desire to get clean. And, there is a way to live another life out of addiction. And mate, for so long, I never knew this, or maybe I did know this, but I didn't think it was possible because the addiction had such a stranglehold on me. But if you're willing to make changes and you're willing to put in work every day, there is a way you can turn your life around. I will say that. And since entering recovery, some of the most beautiful people I know in my life, in or outside of recovery, have been since I've entered the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. So, mate, yeah, it's hard, but it's so worth it. It's and the old saying is nothing changes if nothing changes. If you're willing to make the changes, there's a beautiful life waiting in front of you. So, yeah,
very true, very true. And where would you point people to go to get advice or help? Would you pass on advice personally to people, or do they go to Narcotics Anonymous?
Absolutely, mate. Look, I've, since I've told my story, made it public, I've had a few people, friends who I've grown up with and stuff, actually reach out to me and go, wow, that's incredible. They're having some problems with drugs as well. And, so I've sort of helped them along the way. And, so that's been such a rewarding part of my journey, knowing that other people have taken notice and gone, man, wow, if he can do it, then maybe I can do it as well. And there's loads of there's services everywhere. But yeah, look, I do. I can't advertise or promote the Narcotics Anonymous program, but That's what I do, and that's what keeps me clean. And there are meetings all over, well, nationwide, I should say. But I'm lucky down in the part of Sydney that I live that there's a great fellowship that I keep in touch with. So, but there are services there everywhere. Drug and alcohol counselling services and stuff. But to answer your question, if anyone which wants to reach out to me, absolutely, I'd be happy to help.
Happy days. And where would they do that? How they get in touch with you?
Mate, the my Facebook and Instagram. I don't know, do I say it on here, or how does it work?
Yeah, give it a plug, give it a wrap. If you get spammed, I apologise.
Yeah, look, look, I'm not the biggest Instagram user, and I'm definitely not a social influencer or anything like that. Maybe one day, or hopefully not, I should say. But it's capital D EE_KAY88, and yes, that is my initials, DK, but with the actual words. So, so yeah, send me a message on there. I don't know if you're gonna tag me on Facebook with this on this podcast, or how you're going to promote this.
We'll get your word out as well, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah, feel free to tag me in it and go from there. Send me a DM.
All right, sounds good. Send DK a DM.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Daniel KOLARIK, thank you so much for joining us on Everyday Greatness. That was an incredible story from a real human being who faced real challenges and found real beauty again in the small everyday stuff, the family dinners, the going on driving lessons with nephews. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it.
My pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me. It's been a great time.
Thank you, Daniel, for joining us. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to the ARA Group for being our major sponsor for the 5th year in a row. To thank Look Studio Australia as well for recording this podcast. And I hope that when you put your device down a little later on, you lift your head up, push your shoulders back, and walk down the street, proud of being an everyday Joe or Joanne bag of donuts. I hope you can join us next week on Everyday Greatness. But in the meantime, if you want to find out more about this show, go to our website, everydaygreatness.com.au, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening today.